On the 10th of November, 1955, a merchant captain crossing the South Pacific sighted something that should not have been there. A small trading ship, 600 miles from where she was supposed to be, drifting, heeled far over on her side, her port rail under the water. He hailed her. Nothing came back. When his men boarded her, they searched her from bow to stern and found no one. 25 people had sailed on that ship. And here is the detail that has never let this case rest. Of every vessel in that ocean, this was the one her people should never have stepped off. She was built so that she could not sink. Welcome to the strange Casebook. Her name was the Joyita. In Spanish, it means little jewel. The file in front of me tonight has been open for 70 years, and it is one of the strangest in the Casebook. As always, I will give you the record, not the rumors. And the record begins with the ship herself, because the ship is the mystery. The Joyita was built in Los Angeles in 1931, a luxury yacht for a Hollywood film director, named for the actress he loved. 69 feet of cedar planking on oak frames, built for calm water and champagne. By 1955, the glamour was long gone. She had served as a patrol boat in the war, then knocked about the islands as a fishing and trading vessel. But in 1948, her owners fitted her holds with refrigeration and packed them with cork insulation. 640 cubic feet of it. And that changed what she was. Flood her completely, and the cork would still hold her up. The men who surveyed her said it plainly. This ship would never go down unless she broke apart. Her captain was Thomas Miller, Dusty to everyone who knew him. 41 years old, British, a sailor from a long line of sailors, and a man running out of luck. His fishing ventures had failed. He was in debt, and he needed this voyage, a simple government charter, to keep himself afloat. At 5 o'clock in the morning, on the 3rd of October, 1955, the Joyita slipped out of Apia harbor in Samoa, bound for the Tokelau Islands. 270 miles, a run of about 2 days. Aboard were 16 crew and 9 passengers. A doctor, a government officer heading out to his post, a family, and among them, 2 children. She should not have sailed at all. The day before, the clutch on her port engine had failed, and Miller took her out anyway, limping on one engine, with the other half stripped in the engine room. Whatever happened out there, it happened to a ship already wounded. She was due on the 5th of October. She did not arrive. On the 6th, the port at Whakaofo reported her overdue, and a detail emerged that troubled everyone who heard it. No distress call had been picked up. Not by the islands, not by any ship, not by anyone. The ocean had simply closed over her. Flying boats of the Royal New Zealand Air Force went up and swept the sea for the better part of a week, nearly 100,000 square miles of it. They found nothing. No ship, no raft, no wreckage. The search was called off. For 5 weeks after she vanished, the Joyita was simply gone. Then, on the 10th of November, the merchant ship Tuvalu, running north of Fiji, sighted her. Adrift, 600 miles west of her course, listing so hard that her port deck ran awash, half under the water, her hull streaked and fouled. She had been out there, alone, for weeks. The boarding party went over her, deck by deck. Every one of the 25 was gone. What they found instead has been argued over ever since. The radio was switched on and tuned to the International Distress Channel. It looked intact, but behind the panel, the cable to the aerial was broken, and the break had been painted over. Whoever sent a mayday from that set was speaking into a radius of about 2 miles of empty ocean. The logbook was missing. So was the sextant, and the chronometer, and the other navigation instruments. So were the firearms Miller kept aboard. So was the dinghy, and all 3 of the ship's life rafts. On the deck lay a doctor's bag. Inside it, a stethoscope, a scalpel, and 4 lengths of bandage, stained with blood. Someone aboard the Joyita had been hurt before she was abandoned, and someone had tried to treat them. The strangeness kept accumulating. Mattresses had been dragged into the engine room and pressed over the starboard engine. A canvas awning had been rigged on the deckhouse as if for shelter. The cabin lights and the navigation lights were switched on. Whatever happened, happened at night. And the ship's electric clocks had stopped, all of them, at 25 minutes past 10. The flying bridge had been smashed away, the deckhouse windows broken. And by most accounts, around 4 tons of her cargo, flour, rice, sugar, medical supplies, had vanished with her people. Now, the hull itself could answer some of this. Below the waterline, investigators found a corroded pipe in the engine cooling system, split open, letting the sea in. The bilge pumps that should have handled it were clogged with debris. On one engine, in the dark, the first warning the crew likely had was water rising over the floorboards. Her fuel showed she had run about 240 miles, barely 50 miles from Tokelau on the second night out. The picture assembles itself. A flooding ship, a heavy list, rain squalls, panic rising with the water. But this is where the case turns over, because the Joyita could flood and list and wallow, and still she could not go down. The cork in her holds guaranteed it. A marine surveyor who examined her said she would have floated in that condition indefinitely. And she did. 5 weeks alone in open ocean, and the sea never took her. Miller knew her buoyancy better than any man alive. He had staked his life on it before. Nothing on this earth would have persuaded him to put 25 people into open rafts at night, in heavy seas, when the deck under their feet was safer than anything else within reach. The inquiry, held in Apia in February 1956, understood that perfectly. It traced the leak, and it criticized Miller harshly for sailing at all. But on the only question that mattered, what happened to the people, it gave the answer that keeps this file in the casebook. Their fate, it ruled, was inexplicable on the evidence. So what can the record actually hold? Only this. The bandages say someone was badly hurt, and many have concluded it was Miller himself, perhaps in a fall, perhaps, as some told it, in a fight with his mate, who he had quarreled with before. If Miller went over the side, or lay bleeding in that cabin, then the one man who knew she could not sink was silent. And in the dark, with the water rising, the others chose the rafts. The writer Robin Malm, who later bought the ship herself to chase this question, believed they struck for a reef in the night and were swept past it into open water. Others have blamed pirates, or a passing Japanese fleet, or even a submarine. 70 years of searching has produced no evidence for any of it. Every version is a guess. The sea kept the answer. The Joyita herself was repaired and sold and wrecked again, twice, as if she could not be finished with. She ended as a hulk on a beach in Fiji, broken up piece by piece, until by the end of the 1970s, nothing of her remained. Of the 25 people who sailed from Apia, no trace was ever found. Not a raft, not a body, not one word.
And that is where the file rests. A ship that came back without her people. A radio calling for help through a broken wire. A doctor's bag open on an empty deck. And 25 names the Pacific never returned. Something happened aboard the Joyita at 10:25 on a black October night. Something urgent enough to drive every soul off an unsinkable ship. An injury, a panic, a mutiny, or something no one has guessed. I would ask you to sit with the question their families sat with. What could make you abandon the one thing in that ocean that could not go down? Tell me what you believe. The file stays open. I'll see you at the next. If you'd like to sit with more cases like this, subscribe. The file stays open.